But a large and interesting group of hymn tunes chooses to avoid exact repetition and instead present a picture of tension in the third of their 4 lines. This tension can come in many forms. One of the easiest to recognize is melodic contour. For instance, in the most common tune for Great God We Sing Your Mighty Hand, we build upwards into a climax. Other hymns rely on modulational or chord activity to create the tension in the third line. For instance, the tune for O Little Town of Bethlehem, as it's usually sung in the U.S., if it's performed in C, takes us outside of the most common group of related chords into E major, and then into its related key, A minor, before finally returning us into the tonic key of C. And finally, as we discussed before, there's an entire category of hymns called the short meter hymns, where the third line actually has an extra note. For instance, in We Give Thee But Thine Own. Take a look at the other hymns on this page. Identify those that contain repeating sections, but more importantly, try to figure out what makes the third line of each stand out. You'll see the answers in a moment, but also consider why would the third line be so special? One answer lies in the German poetic and musical form known as the bar form, A, B, A'. In the original German terminology, the first 2 A's are called Stollen. Together they compose the Aufgesang, or the foresong. Then the second section, the Abgesang, or the aftersong, introduces new material, the B, and may end by quoting, either approximately or exactly, one of the original A's. Many of the very famous German hymns that have come down to us actually follow this form. For instance, Lobe den Herrn, den mächtigen König der Ehren, or Nun danke alle Gott mit Herzen, Mund und Händen, or Ein fester Burg ist unser Gott, ein guter Wehr und Waffen. In fact, this form was employed in so many hymns that it was confusion over the name of the form, bar form, that led to the spurious claim that Martin Luther adapted drinking songs for his hymn tunes. Drinking songs, bar form, get it? Yes. So let's re-examine the third hymn, Ein fester Burg, one more time, and identify the various parts. A. Do 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 do. A. Do 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 do. B. Do 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 do. Second half of A. Do 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 do. And so because the B portion introduces new musical material, and also because it falls roughly halfway through the song, this is one source for the magical third line of a hymn. However, this really only accounts for a few German hymns. How do we explain the rest? Well, poetic and musical forms don't survive so well unless they reflect some sort of deeper, intuitive truth or pattern. I can't come up with some arbitrary, convoluted form and expect people to follow it unless it makes some sort of sense. And in fact, the bar form does make a lot of sense. In this slide, we see something that you may have seen in English class a long time ago, called Freytag's Triangle, named after Gustav Freytag, who was a 19th century German author. He studied Greek dramas and observed that all of them followed a certain pattern of rising and then falling action, with the climax occurring about 3/4 of the way through the piece. This is a very natural model for the way that conflict builds up and then is resolved, and it turns out it's also a very natural and expressive way to write music. This, more than anything else, is the reason that hymn tunes build up tension and come to a climax in the third line. Now, as a summarizing example, I'd like to show you the piece Crown Him with Many Crowns, or Diademata. First, remember that contour is important, and so I've mapped out the contour of the piece. You can see that about 3/4 of the way through the piece, there's definitely something going on in the contour. In addition, I've marked the accidentals in the piece, which are a sign that there is some modulational activity going on. In this case, both accidentals are, if this were in the key of C, F sharp, indicating that the piece is temporarily moved into the key of D. Looking at the location of these red dots, you can observe that one is located, in fact, in the third line, the 3/4 point of the song, but that one is also located in the third half line, reflecting the larger and smaller structure that is present in some hymn tunes. Overall, if you take a look at the contour of the song and mentally make some allowances for the modulational activity, what you get is something that looks a lot like Freytag's triangle.